Sold at 19, by her own father. The buyer, a Turkish magnate who wanted only one thing: revenge. She was the weapon. He was the monster. And monsters were never supposed to fall in love. If you enjoy intense stories, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, because when hatred turns into desire, someone always breaks. The black car passed through the iron gates of the Sankak mansion. 9 p.m. Ayla Karaka did not look back. There was nothing left to see. Her life had ended 3 days earlier, the moment her father signed the papers that turned her into property. The car stopped, in front of a residence that looked less like a house and more like an Ottoman palace. Marble columns, perfect gardens, fountains whispering under soft yellow lights. In the distance, Istanbul glowed, a sea of lights beyond the Bosphorus. The door opened. A driver. Expressionless. Ayla stepped out. The night air smelled of jasmine and salt. She inhaled deeply, tried to stop the shaking in her legs. 19 years, that was all she had lived. And now she belonged to a man she had never seen. Yaman Sankak. The name sounded like a sentence. Servants guided her through the entrance hall. No words. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling. Persian rugs swallowed her steps. Everything smelled of old money and absolute power. They stopped before a dark wooden door. "Mr. Sankak is waiting," one of the maids said. Then she left. Ayla swallowed hard. Her fingers were cold. She clenched her fists to hide the tremor. The door opened. The office was vast. Bookshelves covered the walls. A fireplace crackled nearby. Shadows danced over dark mahogany furniture. By the window, with his back to her, stood a tall man, broad shoulders, black hair. He did not turn. "Sit." His voice was deep, flat, like stone. Ayla obeyed. She sank into a leather chair, suddenly small. Her hands rested on her knees, still shaking. Silence stretched. Yaman Sankak kept staring outside. Seconds felt like minutes. The fire popped, a clock ticked, then he turned. Ayla held her breath. His face was carved in hard lines, a tight jaw, eyes so dark they looked black. There was something there, a coldness, as if every trace of humanity had been stripped away, leaving only bone and will. He looked at her, not like a man looks at a woman, like a collector examines a new acquisition. "You know why you're here?" Not a question. "Yes." Her voice surprised her. Steady, one eyebrow lifted. Brief. "So you know there is no escape." He walked to the desk, picked up a folder, the same papers, the contract, the marriage, the transaction. "Your father owed more than he could repay in 10 lifetimes, Yaman said. He flipped pages without reading. "I collected." Ayla's stomach dropped, and he paid with the only thing he had left. He did not say the word, but it hung between them, her. "For 3 years," he continued, "you will be my wife in the eyes of Istanbul." He closed the folder. It hit the desk with a dull sound. "You will live under this roof. Carry my name. Appear beside me." And after? The question escaped her. Too fast. His eyes met hers. Empty. Sharp. "After, you'll be free. If you do your part." He turned away. Back to the window. Hands in the pockets of a perfectly cut suit. The conversation was over. "A maid will take you to your room," he said. "Dinner is at 8. Your presence is not required." Ayla stood. Her legs trembled. She forced herself to walk. Her hand touched the door handle. "Miss Karaka." She stopped, did not turn. "Do not confuse courtesy with weakness." His voice cut the air. "You are here because I chose it. You will stay because I allow it. And when I no longer need you?" Silence finished the sentence. Ayla opened the door. The corridor was empty. Her footsteps echoed on marble. Each step away from that office pulled her deeper into a golden prison. Her room was in the east wing, bigger than the apartment where she grew up. A canopy bed, silk curtains, a bathroom from a magazine. The maid left without a word. Ayla was alone. She walked to the window, The Bosphorus shimmered below. 2 continents. Europe on one side, Asia on the other. And her, trapped in between, belonging nowhere. Tears came, silent, bitter. She let them fall, because in that mansion of marble and secrets, no one would hear her cry. Downstairs, Yaman Sankak stood by the window, unmoving, his face unreadable, his eyes fixed on the night. Revenge finally had a face, a name, a fragile 19-year-old body sleeping under his roof. Everything was in place. The game could begin. 1 week. 7 days of silence, 7 nights of insomnia, 7 dinners where Ayla ate alone at a table made for 20. The Sankak mansion was a maze, empty corridors, closed doors. She learned quickly where she was allowed. The library, the inner garden, the east wing living room. The rest was forbidden territory. No one had to say it. The servants' looks were enough. She woke at 7, breakfast alone, a terrace overlooking the Bosphorus, Turkish tea, fresh bread, always silence. Her phone was taken the first night. "Security measure," the housekeeper said. Smiling, without warmth. Ayla was a prisoner, wrapped in silk, fed like royalty. Still a prisoner. The nights were the worst. At 8 sharp, dinner was served. A long oak table, her seat always the same, to the right of the head chair, the left side empty, until the 3rd night. He entered without warning. Dark suit, perfect, stone face. He sat, did not look at her. Wine was poured, courses served, silence ruled. Ayla could barely swallow. His presence pressed on her chest, like sharing a table with a storm, calm outside, violent underneath. Every clink of his fork made her flinch. Every sip of his wine made her look away. He said nothing, finished, wiped his mouth, stood, left, it repeated. 4th night, 5th, 6th, until the 7th. That night, something changed. He sat, as always. Then, before eating, his eyes lifted. They stopped on her. The weight of that look felt physical. Her fingers tightened around the fork. She did not move, did not breathe. He watched. Long, unblinking. Then he looked away. Dinner continued. Silent. But Ayla noticed. Those eyes returned. Quick, careful, studying her. How she held the cutlery, how she avoided his gaze, the subtle tremor in her hands. Dessert arrived. Yaman pushed the plate aside. "You don't eat." His voice snapped the silence. Ayla looked up, startled. "I do, sir." He tilted his head, and for the first time he smiled, not kindly, not warmly, like a predator who had just noticed his prey was trembling. He was watching her, studying. She moved the food on the plate, lifted the fork, brought it to her mouth, but did not eat. She didn't know how to answer. Yaman leaned back in his chair. His fingers tapped the table. Once, twice, 3 times. The sound echoed through the empty dining hall. "Are you trying to starve under my roof?" A pause. "Or are you trying to provoke me?" "No." Her voice came out firmer than she felt. "I'm just not hungry." His eyes narrowed. For a brief second, Ayla saw something cross that marble face. Something unexpected. Discomfort. As if her answer had disturbed him in a way he hadn't predicted. Yaman stood. The chair scraped against the floor. He adjusted the cuffs of his suit, his jaw locked. "Eat," he said. Low. Controlled. "I won't repeat myself." Then he left. The door closed behind him with a dull thud. Ayla didn't move. Her heart pounded, her hands shook. She stared at the dessert, a Turkish sweet she had never tasted. Her stomach twisted. It wasn't hunger, it was fear, because something had shifted. She had seen it in his eyes, in the tension of his jaw, in the sharpness of that order. Yaman Sankak did not like being ignored, and her silence, that quiet surrender meant to make her invisible, it was doing the opposite. It was making him see her. That night, Ayla ate, forced every bite, swallowed every piece, and when she finally retreated to her room, she allowed herself the question that haunted her since the first day. What does he want from me? The mansion gave no answer. Only the Bosphorus shimmered outside, indifferent. Somewhere in the dark corridors, Yaman Sankak walked in circles inside his office, fists clenched. A different question hammered in his mind. Why doesn't she react? Hatred was easy to control, but that silence was starting to irritate him. The 10th day began like all the others. Silence, loneliness, the invisible weight of marble walls. Ayla had breakfast on the terrace. She watched seagulls circle the Bosphorus. October wind carried a damp cold that sank into her bones. She pulled the shawl tighter around her shoulders, tried not to think of home. There was no home anymore. The morning dragged. She walked through the gardens until the cold chased her inside, passed through the library, flipped through books in Turkish she barely understood, sat by the living room window, counted the boats crossing the strait. 37. That was how she measured time now. In boats, in clock ticks, in silent meals. When boredom became unbearable, her feet carried her beyond permitted territory. She didn't plan it. The West Wing corridor called to her. Always closed, always guarded. One of the maids had mentioned it on the second day. Mr. Sankak's affairs, no one enters. No one. Ayla knew that. But that afternoon the door was slightly open. Just a crack, a few centimeters, enough for a beam of golden light to spill into the dark corridor. She stopped. Her heart raced. "Go back," a voice warned her. "This is not yours." Her feet didn't listen. Ayla pushed the door. The room was smaller than Yaman's main office. Low shelves, a light wooden desk, papers scattered, and on the walls, photographs, dozens of them. A family, a grey-haired man, a wide smile, an elegant woman, kind eyes, and between them a boy, maybe 15, sharp jaw, intense gaze. Ayla stepped closer. In the photos, he was smiling, a real smile, one that transformed his face into something almost unrecognizable. There was warmth, life, the opposite of the stone man who ignored her at dinner. She touched one of the frames. "What are you doing here?" The voice cracked the air like a whip. Ayla spun around. Yaman filled the doorway. His body blocked the exit. His eyes were dark slits. His jaw clenched so hard she could see the muscles jump. The door was open. I didn't ask about the door." He took a step forward. "I asked what you were doing here." The room shrank. Ayla stepped back. The desk stopped her escape. Her hip hit the edge of the wood. "I was just walking through the house. This wing is forbidden." "I didn't know." "Lie." The word was low, dangerous. Yaman advanced, each step measured, until less than a meter separated them. Ayla lifted her chin. Instinct, pure instinct. Something inside her refused to shrink, refused to look down, refused to apologize for a crime she didn't commit. "If you want me in a cage," she said, "you should lock the doors better." Silence exploded between them. Yaman's eyes widened for a fraction of a second. Surprise. Then something darker took over. Cold fury. The air turned sharp. "Say that again." "I heard myself clearly." He stepped closer. "I'm giving you a chance to take it back." Ayla swallowed. Her entire body trembled. Every cell screamed for her to retreat, to apologize, to disappear. But anger was stronger. 10 days of silence. 10 days treated like furniture. 10 days swallowing the humiliation of existing only because he allowed it. "I won't take it back." Yaman moved, fast, too fast. She barely had time to react. He closed the distance, his hand lifted. Ayla shut her eyes. The blow never came. When she opened them, his hand rested on the shelf behind her head. His arm formed a barrier. A cage. His face was close. Too close. She felt the heat radiating from him, the scent of sandalwood and something darker. Musk. "You know nothing about me," he said. His voice was rough, a whisper. "You don't know what I lost. You don't know why I do what I do. And yet you dare challenge me in my own house." Ayla couldn't breathe. His chest almost touched hers. One deep breath, and she would collide with him. The thought hit her like lightning, leaving something behind she didn't want to name. "Let me go," she whispered. "I'm not holding you." It was true. He wasn't touching her, but the closeness was a prison all the same. She felt every charged centimeter between them, heavy, electric. She turned her face away, and then it happened. The movement made her arm brush against his, barely a touch, fabric against skin, less than a second. Yaman recoiled like he'd been burned. He stepped back sharply, breathing uneven, eyes fixed on the place where they touched. His hand curled into a fist. "Leave." The order came strangled. Ayla didn't wait. She ran. Heart thundered, crossed the corridor fast, almost running, didn't look back. Only when she reached the safety of her room did she stop. She pressed against the door. Her legs gave out. She slid to the floor, knees to chest, breath shattered. What was that? His face, the closeness, the heat, the way he pulled back at the slightest touch, as if she were poison. Ayla didn't understand, didn't want to. Across the mansion, Yaman stood frozen. In an office he hadn't entered for months. Photos of his family surrounded him like ghosts. He stared at his hand, the hand that almost touched her face, the hand that tingled where her arm brushed him. His jaw twitched. "Control," he ordered himself. "She is a piece on the board, nothing more." But when he closed his eyes, he still smelled her. Jasmine, like his mother's garden. His eyes snapped open. He punched the wall. The sound echoed through the empty room, and in the silence that followed, he knew something had cracked. Not the wall. Something inside him. 3 days passed after the confrontation. Yaman no longer appeared at dinners. Ayla should have felt relief. Instead, she felt the weight of his absence. Every shadow made her hold her breath. Every door opening made her look up, waiting. But he didn't come. The mansion grew louder in its silence. On the 4th afternoon, Ayla discovered the inner courtyard, hidden behind the library, accessible through a glass door she had never noticed. A secret garden, high walls, a tiled fountain at the center, a stone bench beneath an ancient olive tree. The place felt forgotten. Dry leaves covered the ground. The fountain no longer worked, but there was peace there, a different kind of quiet, not oppressive. Ayla returned the next day, and the next. She brought a book from the library, Turkish poetry she barely understood, but the rhythm calmed her. She sat on the stone bench, legs folded beneath her, and for the first time since arriving, the mansion loosened its grip. She read in a low voice, barely a whisper, stumbling over the words, trying to make sense of a language that had become her prison. That was where he found her. Yaman had not planned it. He had been in the main office, contracts on the desk, numbers on the screen. Then he saw her through the window, crossing the garden, dark hair loose over her shoulders, steps careful, the walk of someone who does not want to be noticed. He should have gone back to work. Instead, he stood. His feet carried him to the library wing. He stopped by the glass door that led to the courtyard, half hidden behind a linen curtain, and watched. Ayla sat on the stone bench, the book open on her lap. Her lips moved as she read, silent words. Sometimes she stopped, frowned, went back a few lines, and Yaman recognized it. The book. It had belonged to his mother. A faded blue cover, yellowed pages, poems. He remembered that book in her hands, her soft voice reciting verses he pretended not to hear. Something tightened in his throat. "Leave," he ordered himself. "This means nothing." But he didn't move. Ayla closed the book, rested her head against the olive tree, closed her eyes. Afternoon light turned her skin gold, soft shadows along her cheekbones. She looked young, fragile, almost at peace. Something contracted in his chest. Irritation, he told himself. Only irritation. That girl was there for a purpose. She was a tool, a means to an end. She should not be in his mother's garden, reading his mother's poems. Looking what? He didn't finish the thought. Ayla opened her eyes, looked straight at him. Time stopped. She didn't know how long he had been there. Seconds, minutes, an eternity. But when her eyes met his through the glass, the air left her lungs. Yaman didn't move, didn't look away, didn't retreat. He stayed there. Curtain pulled aside by his hand, half his face lit by dying sunlight. His eyes were different. No usual coldness, no anger from the office confrontation. There was something else, something she couldn't name, an intensity that pinned her in place. She should lower her gaze. That was expected. That was the rule. Submission, invisibility, the unspoken laws of her golden cage. But she didn't. She held his stare. Seconds stretched. 10, 20, 30. Her heart pounded so loud she felt it in her throat. Her hands clutched the book to her chest. A shield. Yaman didn't blink. Neither did she. A silent duel. A battle fought only with eyes. No words. No touch. Just that invisible thread tightening the air between them. Ayla felt heat rise along her neck. It wasn't fear. It wasn't anger. It was worse. The sharp awareness that he was seeing her, not as property, not as a possession, but as her. The realization terrified her. Yaman broke first. A muscle jumped in his jaw. He released the curtain. The fabric fell between them like a wall. His silhouette remained for one last second. Rigid, tense. Then he disappeared. Ayla released a breath she didn't know she was holding. Her hands shook. The book slipped, hit the stone floor with a dull sound. She didn't pick it up. What was that? It wasn't hatred. What she saw in his eyes. It was curiosity. And something else. Something buried under layers of ice and silence. Something that flashed for a fraction of a second before he pulled away. Ayla stood. Her legs trembled as she crossed the courtyard, leaving the book behind. She needed air, distance, space between herself and that look still burning in her memory. She didn't look toward the library window, but she felt it, felt him there, watching. That night, Yaman returned to dinner. He sat at the head, as always, ate in silence. As always. But this time, his eyes didn't avoid her. Every time Ayla lifted her fork, he watched. Every time she raised the glass, he watched. Every time she breathed, moved, existed, he watched. And for the first time since arriving in that house, Ayla looked back. Dinner lasted forever. When it ended, Yaman stood, adjusted the cuffs of his suit, walked to the door, stopped. "The book," he said without turning. "It belonged to my mother." Ayla's heart stumbled. "I didn't know. I can—" "You may keep it." The door closed. Ayla remained there, alone, with the echo of those two words. "You may keep it." The first thing he had ever offered her. As she climbed the stairs, Ayla realized she wasn't thinking about the prison, or the contract, or the revenge she still didn't understand. She thought of his eyes, the way he watched her through the glass, the way for one moment he looked just as lost as she was. In his office, Yaman held an old photograph. His mother, his father, himself at 15, before everything collapsed. He placed the photo face down on the desk. Revenge was the only path. It always had been. There was no space for distractions, for weakness, for a girl with brown eyes reading poetry in forgotten gardens. He repeated it once, twice, 3 times. But when he closed his eyes that night, the only thing he saw was her gaze, holding his, without fear. The dress arrived at 3 in the afternoon, red, long, a deep, open back that ended at the base of her spine. The fabric was heavy, expensive, the kind of silk that cost more than her father's yearly salary. With it, a black velvet box. Ayla opened it with hesitant fingers. A ruby necklace rested on white satin. The stones caught the light, cast blood-red reflections on the walls. The housekeeper appeared. "Mr. Sankak expects you at 7, main hall." It wasn't an invitation. It was a summons. The hours that followed were not hers. She was prepared, like a doll. 2 women arrived, makeup cases, hair tools. They worked in silence, turning her into someone she didn't recognize. Black-lined eyes, red lips, her hair pulled into an elaborate updo, exposing her neck, her shoulders. When she looked in the mirror, Ayla saw a stranger, sophisticated, elegant, cold, the wife Yaman Sankak wanted to display. She descended the stairs at 7 sharp. The dress whispered with every step. The heels forced her into careful balance. The necklace weighed on her neck like a luxury collar. Yaman waited in the hall. Black tuxedo, white shirt, no tie. The open collar revealed the base of his throat. Bronzed skin. He was turned away, checking his phone. Then he heard her steps. He turned and stopped. Ayla saw the exact moment his eyes traced her. Face, neckline, waist, the fabric flowing to the floor. A cold inspection. Precise. Measured. He said nothing. Slid the phone into his pocket, walked toward her. "The necklace is crooked." Before she could react, his hands lifted. She held her breath. His fingers touched the side of her neck. Cold. Firm. He adjusted the clasp with surgical precision. No rush. No gentleness. His skin brushed hers for less than 2 seconds. It was enough. A shiver ran down Ayla's spine. Yaman stepped back. "The car is waiting." He turned toward the door, didn't look back. The event took place in a palace on the Bosphorus, a centuries-old building, restored with oligarch money, crystal chandeliers, hand-painted ceilings, waiters moved with silver trays, champagne flowed, Istanbul's elite filled the halls, businessmen, politicians, heirs covered in jewels. And at the center of it all, the whispers. Yaman Sankak brought a fiancé. The Karaka girl. It was a deal. Her father owed millions. Ayla heard fragments as they crossed the hall. Eyes devoured her, some curious, others cruel, all hungry for the story. Beside her, Yaman walked like he owned the place. Maybe he did. He greeted men with firm handshakes, nodded to women with perfect indifference, and with each group his hand moved, her elbow, her forearm, the curve of her waist. Brief touches, functional, possessive. "She is mine," those fingers said. "Look, but do not touch." Ayla felt like a trophy, displayed behind glass. With every touch, her body stiffened. With every introduction, "My fiancé, Ayla." She smiled, the empty smile they taught her. And with every look of pity or desire, she swallowed the humiliation like ground glass. By the 3rd hour, her legs were shaking from exhaustion. The heels were torture devices. Thin, merciless. Her smile was a mask, heavy, crushing, and Yaman's hand, always there, always firm. A constant reminder that she did not belong to herself. Not tonight. He guided her toward a quieter corner of the ballroom. "You're shaking." The words were low, only for her. "I'm fine." "I didn't ask if you were fine." His eyes stayed on her, sharp, reading everything. "I said you're shaking." Ayla lifted her chin. "It's cold." A lie. He knew it. Of course he knew it. Yaman Sankak was not a man easily fooled. But instead of pressing her, instead of humiliating her, he did something unexpected. He removed his own jacket and placed it over her shoulders. The fabric still carried his warmth, his scent. Sandalwood. Musk. Something darker she couldn't name. It wrapped around her like a cloud. Ayla froze. Her fingers curled into the lapels. Gripping. Her heart slammed against her ribs. "This is not kindness," Yaman said, before she could thank him. "I don't want my fiancé fainting in the middle of the room." The coldness of the words should have hurt. Instead, anger flared. "My fiancé," she repeated softly. "So, that's how you see me?" His eyes narrowed. "You are an extension of me. At least tonight. And tomorrow." "Tomorrow," he continued, You go back to being invisible." The words landed clean, direct, a blunt strike to her chest. Ayla felt the air leave her lungs. She looked away, jaw tight. Her nails dug into her palms inside his jacket. Yaman watched her for a moment. Then, without warning, his hand moved. His fingers settled at the base of her spine. Exposed, his palm flat, firm, warm, against bare skin. She went still. "It's time to leave," he said. His voice was a dark murmur. "They're staring." He guided her through the crowd. His hand burned like hot iron against her back. The ride back was silent. In the car, Ayla pressed herself against the door, putting as much distance as possible between them, the jacket still on her shoulders. She should have given it back. She couldn't. Yaman stared out the window, unreadable. At the mansion, he stepped out first, opened her door, automatic, meaningless. She passed him without a word. Halfway up the stairs, she stopped. It was the first time he used her name. "Ayla." She turned. "Your jacket." Their eyes met. For a split second, she saw something. Curiosity, discomfort, a flicker of desire, gone before she could be sure. She slipped the jacket off and held it out. Their fingers brushed. 1 second, maybe less. But the heat was real. The electric shock up her arm was real, and the way Yaman pulled his hand back, too fast to be casual, that was real too. He said nothing, turned and disappeared into his office. Ayla climbed the rest of the stairs, her heart in pieces. In her room, she tore off the red dress, like shedding a second skin. The rubies hit the vanity. The shoes were kicked aside. She scrubbed her makeup away until only her 19-year-old face stared back. In the mirror, she still felt his hand, still felt the heat, still heard her name in his voice. For the first time. Ayla. She closed her eyes and pressed her forehead to the cold glass. This was dangerous. Whatever this was, the looks, the touches that lasted a second too long. It was dangerous, because Yaman Sankak was her jailer, and she was starting to forget that. The nightmare came as it always did. Water, darkness, the feeling of sinking, no voice, no scream. Ayla thrashed in the sheets, her body soaked in sweat, her lungs searched for air that wouldn't come. Images collided, her father's face, signing papers, his shaking hand, his voice. "I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry." She woke with a scream trapped in her throat. The room was dark. The clock read 3:20 a.m. Her heart pounded so hard she heard it in her ears. Her hands shook. Her skin was ice cold despite the sweat. She couldn't breathe. The walls felt closer, the ceiling lower, the air thick, heavy, impossible to pull in. Ayla threw the covers aside and ran. She didn't know where, only that she had to get out. She needed air, space. She crossed the hallway barefoot, her white nightgown fluttering, hair loose, sticking to her damp face. She found a door, pushed it open. Cold wind hit her like a slap. A terrace, one of many, this one facing the Bosphorus. Black water stretched below, Istanbul's lights shimmering. October cold cut into her skin. She didn't care. She gripped the stone railing, breathed, once, twice, 10 times. Short, broken gasps. Not enough. Panic still clenched her chest. Like an invisible hand, tears came without permission, hot against cold skin. Silent. She didn't hear the footsteps. "What are you doing here?" Ayla turned. Yaman stood in the doorway. Dark sweatpants, black t-shirt clinging to broad shoulders, bare feet, like hers. His hair was messy, like someone who hadn't slept. He looked different, less armor, more man. I needed air." Her voice broke. He didn't move. His eyes scanned her, the thin nightgown, her crossed arms, the tears she couldn't hide. Something shifted in his expression. Fast, almost invisible. Concern, crushed immediately. "You're crying." Not a question. "No." A lie. She looked away. The Bosphorus glittered below, indifferent. She hugged herself tighter, trying to stop the shaking. It was just a nightmare. Silence, long seconds. She expected him to leave. He always did, but he didn't. He stepped closer. Ayla pressed back against the railing. Instinct screamed at her to retreat, to hide. There was nowhere to go. He stopped less than a step away. "You're freezing." "I'm fine." "Your lips are purple." She didn't answer. His gaze dropped to her hands, white-knuckled, clutching her arms hard enough to bruise. His jaw tightened. Then he did it. He pulled off his t-shirt. Before she could protest, he draped it over her shoulders. Warm. His warmth. That cursed scent of sandalwood. It wrapped around her. She looked up, stunned. He stood bare-chested in the cold, his skin goose-bumped. Faint scars lined his left side, white marks, stories she didn't know. "Put it on," he said, his voice rough. She obeyed, slid her arms into sleeves too big. The shirt fell to mid-thigh, hiding the thin fabric beneath. The shaking eased. Her heart did not. "Why are you doing this?" The question escaped her. He stared at her. "Doing what?" "This." She gestured between them. "One moment, you ignore me. Then you use me. And now you act like you care." Silence dropped heavy. His eyes darkened. For a moment she thought he'd leave, but he didn't. "You screamed," he said quietly. "I heard you." She blinked. "In your sleep, you screamed." She never knew. Nightmares swallowed her whole. "I don't need to explain." "I said you don't." His harshness should have stopped her. Instead, something broke. Her eyes burned, her throat closed, a sob escaped, ugly, loud, impossible to hide. She covered her face. The shame was crushing, crying in front of him, being weak, handing the enemy the only thing she still owned, the ability to look whole even while breaking inside. She waited for mockery, for contempt, for that calculated silence meant to remind her how small she was. What came instead was different. A hand closed around her wrist, firm fingers, warm. Despite the cold, they wrapped around the thin bone with pressure that was steady, not brutal. Ayla lowered her hands. Her eyes widened. Tears still ran down her face. Yaman held her there, his gaze locked onto hers. Dark, intense, impossible to read. His grip did not tighten, did not release. It anchored her. "Breathe," he said. The order was simple. She obeyed. Inhale, exhale. Again. The panic slowly pulled back, replaced by something else. Something just as disturbing. The awareness of his touch, the heat of his fingers, the closeness that had never existed like this. Seconds stretched. When her breathing finally steadied, Yaman let go. He stepped back. The cold rushed into the space he left behind. "Go inside," he said, his voice neutral again. "We'll have visitors tomorrow. I need you presentable." Just like that, as if nothing had happened. He turned and disappeared through the door. Ayla stayed on the terrace, alone, his t-shirt still warm on her skin, her wrist still tingling. The Bosphorus kept shining. Indifferent to the chaos growing inside her, she touched her wrist. The skin was warm, marked by something invisible, something she knew would not fade soon. Back in her room, she didn't remove his shirt. She lay down wearing it, closed her eyes with it. And when sleep finally came, it brought no nightmares, only the scent of sandalwood, and the ghost sensation of firm fingers holding her wrist in the dark. Downstairs, Yaman stood at the window of his office, bare torso exposed, cold cutting into his skin. He stared at his hand, the hand that touched her, that moved before his mind could stop it. Mistake, he told himself. This was a mistake. But when he closed his eyes, he still felt her pulse, fast, alive, terrified, and something inside him, something that should have died long ago, moved. The visitors arrived at noon. Men in suits, lawyers. They stayed locked in Yaman's office for hours. Muffled voices passed through thick walls. As Ayla crossed the hallway, she caught fragments. Contracts. Acquisition. The Demirs will fall. Demir. The name stuck. Everyone in Istanbul knew the Demirs. Banks, hotels, half the real estate market. Untouchable. Or so she thought. When the lawyers finally left, the sun was gone. The mansion sank into silence. Lights shut off one by one. Ayla should have gone to her room. Instead, she went downstairs. She found Yaman in the library, back to the door, a glass of whiskey in his hand. Eyes fixed on the fire, jacket gone, tie loosened, top buttons open. He looked tired, more than that, crushed by something heavy. Ayla stopped at the threshold. Who are the Demirs? The question cut the quiet. He didn't turn. Are you spying on my meetings now? I was in the hallway. I heard the name. And you decided it was your business? I've lived in this house for weeks. She stepped inside. I'm paraded as your fiancé. I sleep under your roof. I eat your food. I wear your clothes. Her voice hardened. I think I deserve answers. Yaman turned. His eyes were dark. Not the usual way. Something stormy lived there. Deserve, he laughed, low, empty. You deserve nothing. You're here because your father sold you, to pay his debts. The words hit hard. She felt it, but she didn't step back. I know why I'm here. What I don't know is why. She moved closer. Why this fake marriage? What do the Demirs have to do with it? That's not your concern. It is. Because something else surfaced now. Frustration, exhaustion. As if he were as tired of carrying that weight as she was. I saw the photos, she said, in the locked office. Your family. Younger. Smiling. His face closed. You don't know what you're talking about. Then tell me. She stepped closer. Then closer. Tell me what happened. Tell me why you're like this. Why you live alone in this house. Surrounded by people who fear you. Why you stare at the Bosphorus every night. Like you're waiting for something that will never come. Why bring me here if you only wanted to ignore me? Why touch me like I burn? I said stop. The whiskey glass flew. Ayla flinched as it shattered against the fireplace. Amber liquid hissed in the flames. Yaman's breathing was heavy now. His eyes wild. The mask was gone. What remained was raw, broken, dangerous. You want to know? He said, voice low, rough. You want to know why I'm like this? He stepped forward. 1, 2, 3. Ayla retreated. Her back hit the bookshelf. Volumes rattled. Nowhere to go. He stopped inches away, too close. She felt his heat, the whiskey on his breath, the rage under his skin. The Demirs, he said, each word a shard of glass. They destroyed my family, took everything. Our money, our company, our home. His eyes locked onto hers. My mother died of grief. 6 months later, my father drowned in debt, trying to recover what we lost. I was 17 when I found his body. She stopped breathing. He lifted a hand, silencing her. You wanted answers. You're getting them. His hand braced against the shelf beside her head, trapping her. The library shrank. Only them, and the fire crackling. 12 years, he continued. 12 years rebuilding. Deal by deal. Brick by brick. Every acquisition, every cent, all to reach them. His voice dropped. And your father. Your dear father. He was their partner. An accomplice. He helped hide the money they stole. The floor vanished beneath her. No. Yes. Your father is a coward. And a thief. And you're his daughter. The price he paid so I wouldn't destroy him with the rest. Tears fell. Silent, burning, carrying away the last illusions. He knew, she whispered. He always knew. And he sold me anyway. So that's what I am. Her voice cracked. Revenge. A tool. Yaman didn't answer, but something wavered in his eyes. A crack. A hesitation. She saw it, and she struck. "You hate yourself," she said. "It's not just them. You want to destroy yourself, for not saving your family, for surviving, for needing all this just to feel something." His fist slammed into the shelf. "Shut up." "No." She lifted her chin, tears still falling, defiant. "You brought me here. You dragged me into this sickness. The least you can do is hear the truth." "What truth?" "That you're as trapped as I am." Silence roared. He stared at her, his jaw locked, breathing short. Then he moved, his hand rose, fingers closed around her chin, forcing her to look at him. Firm, not gentle, not cruel. Restraint. "You know nothing about me," he growled. "I know you're afraid." "I'm afraid of nothing." He froze. For a fraction of a second, the mask shattered. She saw it. Pain. Loneliness. A man who built a fortress only to realize he was locked inside it. His face lowered, too close. She felt his breath, warm, steady, loaded with rage and something else. Her eyes closed. Her heart raced, 1 centimeter, maybe less. That was all that separated them. And then he stopped. His breath collided with her mouth, hot, uneven. But the contact never came. Ayla opened her eyes, found his, wide, wild, locked in a battle she couldn't see. Yaman stepped back, fast, almost violent. As if she burned. His hands ran through his hair, his chest heaved. "Leave," he said, the word strangled in his throat. "Get out." Ayla didn't argue. She walked past him, her steps unsteady, her whole body trembling, her lips tingling with the kiss that never happened. At the door she stopped, looked back. Yaman stood with his back to her, hands braced on the fireplace, head lowered, his shoulders shook. She left. That night, neither of them slept. She replayed every word, every touch. Every centimeter he didn't cross. He burned with the certainty he had come too close, and in the silence of the mansion, something had changed. A line had been crossed. There was no pretending anymore. This was not just revenge. 2 days passed in silence. Yaman didn't appear at dinner, didn't cross her path in hallways, didn't watch her from windows or shadows. He became a ghost in his own house. Ayla should have felt relief. She felt empty. His words echoed. "Your father is a coward and a thief." The truth cracked something inside her, the last illusion, that she had been a victim of circumstance, not of choices. Her father had known, always, and he handed her over anyway. She spent her days in the courtyard, under the olive tree. The poetry book still rested on her lap, but the words no longer made sense. Nothing did. She drifted, caught between the hatred she should feel for Yaman and something else, something dangerous. The almost kiss haunted her, his breath against her lips, the way his eyes widened, as if he was as surprised as she was, the brutal restraint that made him step back when every part of him seemed to want to move forward. "You're afraid of me." She had said that, and for 1 second, he had seemed to agree. On the 3rd morning, Ayla woke with a splitting headache. The cold night on the terrace, the confrontation. It all came due. Low fever, aching body, burning throat. She tried to sit up. The room spun. She fell back into the pillows. Time blurred. Sweat. Chills. Half sleep. At some point, a maid appeared. Mentioned a doctor. Ayla murmured no. The maid insisted. She didn't hear the answer. Sleep dragged her under again. When she woke, the room was different. Curtains closed, blocking the light that stabbed her eyes. A humidifier hummed softly, vapor easing her throat. On the bedside table, a tray, tea, honey, lemon, and beside it, a book. Ayla forced herself upright. Her head still throbbed, but the fever had eased. She reached for the book. Poetry. Not the old volume she had been reading. This one was new. Dark blue leather cover. Fresh pages. The scent of ink. A translated edition. Portuguese. Her heart raced, She opened it. Inside, a printed dedication for those who search for words in unfamiliar lands, not his handwriting, a generic dedication, part of the edition. But someone had chosen it. Someone noticed she struggled with Turkish. Someone cared enough to find a version she could read. The door opened. The housekeeper entered with another tray. Soup, fresh bread, more tea. "Mr. Sankak asked for this," she said. "He asked me to tell you the doctor will come this afternoon if the fever returns." Ayla stayed silent. "The book arrived this morning?" she asked. "Yes, miss." "He ordered it last night." Express delivery. Last night, while she burned with fever, he was ordering books. "Is he home?" "In the office, as always." The woman left. Ayla was alone. With the tray, the book, and a confusion that threatened to choke her, she barely touched the soup. The tea was sipped slowly, out of duty. But the book never left her hands. She spent the afternoon reading poems about longing, loss, loving in silence, carrying the weight of unspoken words. Each verse felt chosen, not by an algorithm, but by someone who understood what it meant to be lost in a place that wasn't yours. She closed the book. Her eyes burned. Not from fever. Who was Yaman Sankak? The cold man at the dinner table, the monster who used her as a piece in a revenge game, or the broken boy from the photographs? 17, lost everything, spent his life trying to reclaim what could never return. She didn't know, but she needed to. At dusk, Ayla got up. Her body protested, but the fever was gone. She slipped a robe over her nightgown, the same silk robe from the first day. She went downstairs. The mansion was quiet. The staff had retreated. Only corridor lights remained, guiding her like breadcrumbs. Yaman's office stood at the end of the hall. The door was half open. A line of golden light spilled onto the marble floor. She stopped. Her heart pounded. Her hands trembled. Cold? Nerves? She couldn't tell. She inhaled, pushed the door. Yaman sat at the desk, papers scattered, a glass of whiskey beside him, reading glasses. Ones she had never seen rested on his nose, softening the sharp lines of his face. He looked up. For a moment neither moved. Then he removed the glasses, set them down. "You should be resting," he said, neutral. "I know." "The fever's gone." Silence stretched. Ayla stepped inside, then another step, bare feet silent on the Persian rug. She stopped across the desk, clutched the book to her chest. Yaman's gaze fell to it. Something flickered in his eyes. Gone too slow. "You read it," he said. Not a question. "I did." She swallowed. So much she wanted to say. Hate, gratitude, the way he pushed her away and pulled her back, keeping her always on the edge of something she couldn't name. But what came out was simple. "Thank you." He went still, studied her, the silk robe, loose hair, pale face, the vulnerability she couldn't hide. "It's just a book." "No," she said softly. "It's not." She walked around the desk. He straightened, didn't stand, watched her approach. She stopped beside him, close enough to touch. Her heart thundered. Slowly, she extended her hand. Her fingers rested on his, light, barely there, skin against skin, warm, alive, heavy with something neither could name. Yaman held his breath. His eyes dropped to their hands. They stayed like that, studying, absorbing, trying to understand. When he looked up, something was different. Not cold, not angry. Closer to surrender. "Ayla," he murmured. Her name sounded like a prayer. She didn't answer, just kept her hand there, fingers trembling, her whole body vibrating with the intensity of that minimal contact. Seconds stretched. Then, slowly, his hand turned, palm up, his fingers threaded into hers. A small gesture, almost invisible, but it meant everything. Tears rose in her eyes, not sadness, something else. They stayed like that, hands intertwined, breaths sinking, two enemies who forgot for one moment that they were supposed to hate each other. Yaman broke the silence. "You need to rest," he said, his voice rough. She felt it, but didn't move, and he didn't let go. When she finally returned to her room, it was past midnight, the book still in her arms, the heat of his hand still burning in her fingers, and the confusion in her chest had turned into something worse, something dangerous. Something had changed, not just in the mansion, in her. Back in the office, Yaman remained seated, eyes fixed on the hand she had touched, the hand that no longer felt empty. The hand was still tingling. The same hand that for 12 years had only known how to push people away. This time it didn't want to let go. He closed his eyes, and in that silence, he understood something dangerous. He was already lost. A full week passed, and the mansion was no longer the same. The air felt lighter, not warm but less heavy. The long corridors felt shorter, less hostile. The dinners changed. They were still quiet, but not empty. Sometimes words existed, small ones. "The weather is changing. The soup is good tonight. You're still reading that book?" Fragments, pieces of something that should never exist between them. Ayla didn't understand it. She didn't dare name it. Yaman was still distant. Most of his time was spent locked inside his office, behind doors, behind control. When he spoke to her, his tone was still formal, almost cold, but not entirely. There were cracks now, looks that lasted a second too long, fingers brushing when he passed her the salt. Accidental. Or maybe not. And always the book. She read in the courtyard, page after page, feeling his presence at the windows, watching. Friday night arrived with rain, not the polite rain of early autumn, a real storm, thunder shaking the walls, lightning cutting the sky above the Bosphorus. The power went out just after 10. The mansion fell into darkness, complete, dense. Ayla was in her room when the lights died, the dark pressed against her chest. She froze, then moved, hands searching, finding the door. Thunder exploded again. Her heart raced. The hallway was black too, but candles appeared, servants moving fast, quiet, efficient, light returning in fragments. Ayla followed it, down the stairs, one hand on the railing. The main living room was alive, fire burning in the fireplace, shadows dancing on the walls. And there, Yaman, standing by the fire. He turned when she entered. The orange light carved his face sharp. His eyes looked darker, deeper, more dangerous. "The electricity should be back in a few hours," he said, his voice steady. "The generator is being activated." She nodded, unsure what to do. Go back to the dark room, or stay, with him, the storm roaring outside, the fire breathing between them. He made the choice for her. "Sit," he said, pointing to the sofa. "There's no reason to wait alone in the dark." She obeyed, curled into the leather, legs tucked close. Yaman stayed standing a moment longer. Then, unexpectedly, he sat at the other end. Silence returned, but it wasn't hostile, it was heavy, waiting. Ayla spoke first. "Do you miss them?" He turned his head. "Who?" "Your parents." His jaw tightened. She waited for the wall, the cold, the distance. It didn't come. "Every day," he said, quiet. "All the time." Thunder crashed again. Ayla flinched. Her body reacted before her mind, arms crossed, protecting herself. "You're afraid of storms," he said, not a question. "Since I was a child," she answered, a weak smile. "My mother used to hold me." Her voice faltered. "She sang during thunder. She said the noise was just angels. Moving furniture in the sky." Silence stretched. "And now?" he asked. "Now there's no one." The words escaped raw. Too honest. She looked away, ashamed. He moved. When she looked again, he was closer, just inches, enough to feel his heat. "My mother was afraid of the dark," he said. a bitter smile. She was strong in every other way. But when the lights went out, she needed someone near. Ayla stared at him. He never spoke about her, not like this. Was she kind? Too kind. For this world. For this family. And your father. Proud. His mouth twisted. Too proud to ask for help. When everything collapsed, he tried to rebuild alone. He worked until his body failed. And when he realized there was no way out, he stopped, didn't need to finish. I found him, he continued, in his office. I thought he was sleeping. I went to wake him for dinner. His throat closed. Ayla didn't think. Her hand found his, fingers lacing, warm, alive. Yaman stared at their hands, as if shocked. You don't have to carry that alone, she whispered. I always have. I know. Her grip tightened. But not anymore. He looked at her. There was no cold in his eyes now. No anger, only pain, open, bleeding, and something else, something pulling her in. Ayla, he said, his voice rough. You don't know what you're stepping into. Maybe not. I'm dangerous, I know. I will hurt you. You already did. Thunder exploded again. Neither moved. His breathing was fast, jaw locked. A battle she could see, desire, control. She moved first. She didn't know why. Maybe the storm, maybe the dark, maybe the certainty that if she didn't, she never would. Her free hand rose, touched his face. He closed his eyes instantly. Like electricity hit him. His jaw softened under her fingers. A shaky breath escaped. When he opened his eyes again, the fight was over. He surrendered. His hand slid to her neck, fingers threading into her hair. Before she could breathe, his mouth found hers. The kiss wasn't gentle. It was desperate, hungry, years of isolation collapsing into one moment. His lips moved with urgency. Her breath broke. He tasted of whiskey, smoke, and her own mirrored hunger. She grabbed his shirt, pulled him closer, his chest pressed to hers, heat everywhere. The fire crackled, the storm screamed. They kissed like the world was ending. He pulled her onto his lap, hands framing her face, firm, as if afraid she might vanish. His mouth traced her jaw, her neck, her pulse. This is madness, he murmured. We should stop. We should. They didn't. The kiss slowed, deepened. Her hands explored his shoulders, felt the tension. He returned to her mouth, learning, memorizing. When they finally pulled back, they were breathless, foreheads touching, hearts aligned. This changes everything, he said. I know. There's no going back. I know. I don't know how to be different, he admitted. I don't know how to be anything else. She touched his face. Then we learn. Together. Lightning filled the room. In that white second she saw it all. The pain, the hope, the fear. And she knew. The contract was broken. What existed now was real. When the lights returned, they were still there, hands linked, bodies close, fire dying into embers. No one moved. For the first time there was no rush, no masks, only them, and the storm leaving. Morning came quietly, the fireplace cold, the sofa empty. She had gone upstairs some time before dawn. He barely remembered carrying her, letting her walk alone, not wanting to let go. He stood. His body ached, not physical. His lips still burned. His hands remembered her waist. The warmth, the word echoed. Mistake. He walked to the window. The Bosphorus was grey. Istanbul waking. Indifferent. 12 years building, planning, suppressing. And now, everything was cracked. Anything that could distract him from the objective was a threat. And it took only one night, one storm, one girl with sad eyes, reading poetry in his mother's courtyard. He clenched his fists. This could not continue. At 9 sharp, Ayla went down for breakfast. The table was set as always. Turkish tea, fresh bread, seasonal fruit, routine, control. But Yaman's chair was empty. Mister. Sankak left early, the housekeeper said. Meetings in the city. He didn't say when he'd return. Isla's chest tightened. Did he leave a message? No, ma'am. The woman left quietly. Isla sat alone, staring at food she couldn't swallow. So this is it. One night, and he runs. Anger came first, hot, familiar, comforting. How dare he? How dare he kiss her like she was air and he was drowning, and then disappear, like nothing happened. But anger didn't last. Something worse replaced it. Doubt. The following days were an exercise in avoidance. Yaman came home late, left early. When they crossed paths, he nodded, cold, polite, and kept walking. At unavoidable dinners, he sat at the head of the table, eyes fixed on his plate. It felt like the first weeks again. Worse, because now Ayla knew what existed beneath the mask. She had tasted him, heard his voice break when he spoke about his parents, held his hand while the storm raged. And now he was pretending none of it was real. By the fifth night she had enough. He was in his office. Ayla didn't knock. She pushed the door open, blood burning in her veins. He looked up from the papers. For a fraction of a second, she saw it, longing, desire, gone before she could be sure. I need something, he said. Pure ice. We need to talk. I'm busy. I don't care. She closed the door behind her. The click sounded like a gunshot. Yaman leaned back. His eyes scanned her. Fast, clinical, as if assessing a threat. His fingers tapped the desk. Once, twice. 5 minutes, he said. I'll take as long as I need. His jaw locked. Ayla stepped forward, stopped across the desk, palms flat on the wood. Her heart pounded. She refused to show fear. What are you doing? He asked. Working. No. She leaned closer. What are you doing to me? His eyes narrowed. I don't know what you're talking about. You do. Her voice sharpened. 1 week ago. You kissed me. You held me like I was the only real thing in the world. And now you act like I'm... She searched for the word. Invisible. You're exaggerating. I'm not. She moved around the desk. He stood abruptly. The chair scraped the floor. He stepped back. Then again. Until his back hit the bookshelf. What are you doing? Testing a theory. She closed the distance, stopped inches away, close enough to see the pulse racing in his neck, close enough to feel the heat coming off him. You're afraid, she said. I'm afraid of nothing. Of me? His eyes flared. This is ridiculous. Then kiss me again. Silence crashed down, deafening. Yaman stared at her, his breathing uneven, fists clenched, 12 years of control hanging by a thread. No. The word was forced. Why? Because I shouldn't have done it the first time. But you did. It was a mistake. The word hit her like a slap. She stepped back, instinctive. Pain crossed her face. He saw it. She knew he did. Something broke in him too. Ayla, She raised her hand. You're right. It was a mistake. I am a mistake. This whole house is a mistake. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? He had no answer. Tears rose. She fought them. She would not cry, not again. Not for him. You know your problem. Her voice shook. You spent so long preparing for revenge. You forgot how to be human. You forgot how to feel anything but hate. You know nothing about what I feel. Then tell me. The shout echoed. She froze. His eyes burned. His chest rose and fell fast. Then, without warning, he moved. His hands framed her face. She stopped breathing. His touch was firm, almost desperate. His thumbs brushed her cheeks, catching the tears she couldn't stop. He looked at her like she was the most terrible and most precious thing he had ever seen. "You want to know what I feel?" His voice was torn. "I feel like I'm losing control. Like everything I built is collapsing because of a girl who was supposed to be just a pawn. I feel like when you enter a room, I forget how to breathe. That when you touch me, I want to burn the world. Just to keep feeling this." Ayla couldn't move. Her hands rose to his wrists, fingers closing, feeling the frantic pulse. "Then why are you running?" "Because you deserve more than I can give." "That's not your decision." She tightened her grip. "You don't decide for me. You don't decide what I deserve. I already lost that choice once, when my father sold me. I won't lose it again." His eyes closed. His forehead rested against hers. They stayed like that, breathing together. Bodies so close that any movement would change everything. His lips hovered near hers. The temptation was brutal, but he didn't kiss her. Instead, his arms wrapped around her waist, pulled her in, held her. The hug was hesitant at first, then tighter, until there was no space left. Ayla buried her face in his chest. The tears came. But they were different now, not pain, relief, surrender, acceptance, despite the contract, despite the revenge, despite the lies. She felt something for this broken man holding her like she might disappear. "I don't know how to do this," he murmured into her hair. "I don't know how to be good." "I don't either. I might hurt you. You probably will." He pulled back enough to look at her. His hand rose again, tracing her jaw, her cheek, the outline of lips he refused to kiss. "I don't deserve this. You said that. Maybe you're right." She turned her face, kissed his palm. "But I'm here, and I'm not leaving." Silence stretched between them, heavy, shaking, full of unspoken promises and unnamed fears. He rested his forehead against hers again. They stayed there, in the dim office, Istanbul shining beyond the window, two broken hearts, trying to remember how it felt to be whole. That night, he walked her to her bedroom door. They didn't enter. They didn't kiss. But before letting go, he held her hand for a long moment. "Tomorrow," he said, "we need to talk about everything. I know the plan. The Demir family. Your father." He hesitated. "Us." Her heart raced. "Us." She looked at him. For the first time, she saw something beyond fear. Hope. Small, fragile, but real. "Us," she confirmed. He released her hand and disappeared down the dark corridor. Ayla entered her room shaking, not from pain, from possibility. As she lay down, one thought followed her into sleep. Maybe it's not too late, for either of us. The promised conversation never happened. The next morning the lawyers arrived. 3 men, dark suits, briefcases heavy with documents. Yaman signed without hesitation. Ayla watched from the staircase, trying to catch fragments of conversation through the half-open door. "Tomorrow. The assembly. The Demirs won't be able to appeal." Her stomach dropped. Tomorrow. 12 years of planning. Ending in 24 hours. His hand never found hers that day, not the next. The mansion turned into a war room, constant calls, closed-door meetings, servants running with coffee trays that returned untouched. And Ayla, once again, was invisible. But this time the invisibility hurt differently. On the eve of the assembly, she found him on the terrace, past midnight. The Bosphorus stretched below, a silver ribbon under a full moon. His hand rested on the railing, jacket discarded, shirt sleeves rolled up to his elbows. He looked exhausted, not the exhaustion of a bad night, the exhaustion of a lifetime, a weight carried too long, a weight heavy enough to crush a man. Ayla stopped beside him. She said nothing. Minutes dragged on. Cold November wind cut exposed skin. Neither of them moved. Yaman spoke first. "Tomorrow it ends." His voice sounded wrong, hoarse, empty. "I know," Ayla said. "The Demirs will lose everything. The company, the properties, the name." A bitter laugh escaped him. 12 years. And finally, he didn't finish. Ayla studied his profile. Tight jaw, eyes fixed on the black water, hands gripping the railing hard enough to turn his knuckles white. "You don't look happy," she said. Yaman turned his head. Their eyes met, and what she saw took her breath away. Pain. Not the old pain, not the hardened armor he wore every day. This was new, raw, bleeding. "Your father," he said. Ayla's heart froze. "What about my father?" Yaman stepped away from the railing, ran a hand through his hair, paced, stopped, paced again, a caged animal searching for an exit that didn't exist. "He was a minority partner," Yaman said finally, "with the Demirs. He helped hide the funds they stole from my family." "You told me that," Ayla said. "I told you part of it." He stopped moving. "What I didn't tell you is what happens to him when the Demirs fall." The ground vanished beneath her. "What?" "The evidence, the documents, the transactions." Yaman faced her fully. "Your father is on all of them. When I present everything tomorrow, he goes down with them. Prison, trials, everything." Air left Ayla's lungs. She stepped back. "You knew this? All this time?" "Yes. And you were going to do it anyway?" "It was the plan." The word hung between them, heavy. Ayla looked into his eyes. Two dark wells of conflict, silent wars, decisions too heavy for one night. "Your father destroyed my family," Yaman said quietly. "He knew what the Demirs were doing. He helped hide it. And when my father tried to fight back, your father closed every door, every bank, every contact. My father died because there was nowhere left to go." Tears rose in Ayla's eyes. "I didn't know. I know you didn't. I was a child. I know." His voice cracked. "And that's why—" He couldn't finish. Ayla faced him fully now. Tears ran freely. She didn't hide them. "That's why what?" Yaman closed his eyes, his fists clenched, jaw tight, his whole body fighting something invisible, 12 years of hatred trying to survive. "I can remove the evidence," he said, the words torn from him. "The Demirs fall. Your father stays out." Ayla's heart stopped. "What?" She stepped closer. "Why would you do that?" Yaman opened his eyes, and what she saw broke her. Love. Raw. Desperate. Terrified. "Because you asked me to learn how to be human again," he said. "And I can't do that. If I destroy the only person you still have—" His voice failed. Ayla crossed the distance. Her hands framed his face. Her thumbs wiped tears she hadn't noticed falling. Yaman Sankak, the cold magnate, the architect of revenge, the man who swore never to feel again, was crying. "I don't know who I am without the hate," he whispered. "If I give up revenge, what's left?" "You," Ayla said. "There's you. And if that's not enough?" Her heart shattered and rebuilt itself at the same time. "It's enough for me." He searched her eyes, for lies, for pity, for any reason not to believe. He found only truth. "My father," Ayla began. "I know what he did. I know he sold me." Yaman's hands covered hers. "But he's your father. And if I destroy him, a part of you dies with him. And I can't." His voice broke again. "Why?" The question was a whisper. Yaman rested his forehead against hers. "Because somewhere between the contract and now, you became more important than revenge. More important than everything." His breath brushed her lips, "and that terrifies me." Ayla closed her eyes. Tears kept falling, not from sadness, from something too big for a name. "Then choose," she whispered. "Right now. The hate. Or me." Silence stretched forever. Then Yaman kissed her. Not like the first time. No desperation, no hunger, only surrender. Complete. Absolute. Devastating. His lips moved against hers with a tenderness that made her sob. His hands held her face like she was made of glass. Ayla melted into him, her arms wrapped around his neck, her body fit against his. And when the kiss deepened, there was no doubt left, no fear, only them. He pulled back just enough to breathe, foreheads touching, eyes closed. "You," he said, voice rough. "I choose you." She broke into a sob. He kissed her again, slower, longer. A kiss that was promise, and apology, and confession, all at once. When they separated, both were breathless. "And now?" she asked, for the first time since she met him. His face was calm. "Now we figure out what comes next." They stayed on the terrace until sunrise, holding each other against the cold, silent, complete. When golden light finally touched the Bosphorus, Yaman took his phone, dialed a number. "Cancel the evidence against Karaka," he said. "The Demirs fall alone." He hung up. Ayla stared at him. He turned to her. "Done." She had no words. She kissed him, in the morning light, over a city that had seen so much hate. Something new began. The Demirs fell. The news spread through Istanbul like wildfire, fraud, money laundering, decades of crimes exposed in a single assembly. The heirs were arrested before nightfall. The empire collapsed, a house of cards. But the architect of destruction was not there to watch. He was at the mansion, with her. Ayla found him in the inner garden, his mother's courtyard. The ancient olive tree, the fountain running again, water whispering over old tiles. Yaman sat on the stone bench, eyes lost in the moving leaves. She approached quietly, sat beside him, their shoulders touched. "It's over," he said, his voice strange. "Finally over. How do you feel?" He took a long moment. "Empty." He turned to her. 12 years waiting for this. Planning. And now, I realize this isn't what I wanted. She held his hand. "What did you want?" His voice cracked. "My parents. I wanted revenge to bring them back. But it doesn't. Nothing does." Tears fell. She didn't wipe them away. She stayed, holding his hand. While 12 years of pain finally found an exit, the sobs came quietly, contained. A man learning how to cry after a lifetime of pretending he didn't need to. When it passed, his eyes looked different, lighter. "Thank you," he said. "For what?" "For reminding me there's something beyond hate." She touched his face. "You were always there. You just needed someone to show you." He kissed the palm of her hand, soft, lingering, full of promises. "Come with me," he said. He took her somewhere she had never seen. A tower in the oldest corner of the mansion, worn stone stairs, a wooden door that creaked open. Inside, the ceiling was glass, walls of windows, from floor to sky. Istanbul spread in every direction, a sea of lights under the stars. The Bosphorus cut through the city like a silver artery. Ayla lost her breath. "My mother's favorite place," Yaman said softly. "She came here to watch the stars. Said she could talk to them. It's beautiful. I never brought anyone here." He turned to her. "Until now." The air shifted. She felt it before she saw it. Electricity, building, charging every breath. Yaman's gaze darkened, intense, hungry, in a way she recognized, because she felt the same. Ayla whispered his name, low, almost afraid. "Yaman." He didn't answer right away. He studied her face, slowly, as if memorizing it. "I need you to be sure," he said. His voice was deep, controlled, barely holding. "I am," she replied, a breath, long, heavy, "because once you step into this with me..." He took one step closer. "There's no way back. I don't want to go back." That was enough. He closed the distance, his hands found her waist, firm, certain. He pulled her against him. The heat of his body crossed the thin fabric of her dress, burned through it, straight to her skin. She lifted her face. His mouth met hers. The kiss started slow, deep, a silent agreement, No more walls, no more exits. His hands moved up her back, fingers tracing her spine, leaving fire behind. Ayla arched into him. A soft sound escaped her lips, unplanned, uncontrolled. Yaman swallowed the sound with his mouth, deepened the kiss, until breathing became optional. Yaman. Her voice broke. A plea. He pulled back just enough to look at her. His eyes were dark, wide, hungry, his breath uneven. His hands still holding her, like she could vanish. "I waited my whole life," he murmured, "for something I didn't even know existed." A pause. And now I found it. He kissed her again. This time there was no slowness. There was urgency. Years of loneliness poured into every touch, every breath, every place where skin met skin. Ayla's hands slid under his shirt, pulled it free. Buttons gave up under shaking fingers. Yaman tensed when she touched his chest. "Don't stop," she whispered. "Please." He didn't. His hands found the zipper of her dress. The fabric slid down her shoulders like water. Cold night air kissed her skin. For 1 second. Then his body covered hers, warm, protective, devoted. They sank onto the cushions scattered across the floor. The city burned with lights below. Stars watched in silence above. Under the glass ceiling, two bodies found each other for the first time. He touched her like she was sacred. Every kiss was a vow, every caress a promise. His mouth mapped her skin, slow, intentional, learning curves, memorizing reactions, pulling soft sounds from her that echoed in the empty tower. Ayla gave in. No fear, no doubt, only the delicious weight of his body, the rhythm they built together, a slow rise, unstoppable, towards something neither of them had words for. They reached it together, one wave, one moment, breathless, shaking, clinging to each other like survivors after a storm. After, they lay on their backs, bodies tangled. Breathing in, sink, sweat cooling on skin, stars turning slowly above them. Yaman turned his head, looked at her. His eyes held something she had never seen before. Peace. "I love you." Simple words, no armor, no fear. Her heart overflowed. "I love you too." He smiled. A real smile. The same one from old photographs. The boy he once was, still alive beneath the pain. "What do we do now?" she asked. "Whatever you want." "And if I want to stay?" "Then stay." A beat. Forever. He leaned down. His lips brushed hers, light like wings. "Forever," he confirmed. Outside, Istanbul kept moving. Boats crossed the Bosphorus. Lights blinked on the hills. Minarets cut into the velvet sky. Calls to prayer echoed for no one. But inside the glass tower, none of that existed. Only them. Two souls that met through hatred and chose love. Two bodies that learned each other's language. Two hearts that, against everything, now beat as one. The hatred was undone. And under the sky of Istanbul, their fate was sealed. If this story touched you, tell us where you're watching from, leave a like, subscribe to the channel. Sold at 19, bought for revenge. She was the weapon, he was the monster. But the monster fell in love. And when hate turned into desire, the contract was torn apart by destiny.